Amy's story. Amy danced with joy when she knew she was pregnant with a baby boy. She knew immediately she wanted to name him Joshua. Throughout her pregnancy, everything was fine, 10 fingers and 10 toes. During delivery, complications would not only affect the perfect health of her little boy, but turn Amy's life upside down. Josh has a diagnosis of cerebral palsy. It has by no means been an easy journey to keep him as healthy as possible, but it's brought a joy like no other. He is a calm, humorous, positive and handsome young man now, and you can definitely see how much he loves and appreciates everything his mum has done for him. Josh feeds through a tube that leads straight into his small intestine. Amy set up a pump for Josh that slowly gives him his food during the day. Each time Josh needs medicine or a change of position, she must disconnect the pump and flush the tube with water. Pretty fiddly and time-consuming, and Amy must be extra careful about keeping everything clean. On top of this, Josh has a bag attached to his tummy through a tube, as it does not drain out into his intestine like it would with me or you. This is due to Josh's twisted spine, which has caused part of his intestine to be squashed. Most days, Josh's tummy does not fully drain to the bag, and he is sick instead. Amy says, "We get through a lot of bedding and clothes, which I need to add to my list of ever-growing to-dos for the day. I smile because Josh smiles. He is such a resilient young man, and I cannot let him down." Josh is a bright young man and he can communicate in lots of ways, through looking at either his yes and no armbands, through his heart-melting grins, and an eye gaze, which is a communication aid he can use by choosing words with his eyes, just not verbally. Josh loves being social, and so Amy ensures he has regular play dates with his friends, including his granny. Amy says, "To get Josh involved in playing board games can sometimes be a struggle, especially if either one of us is tired, but I feel it's important to keep him thinking and solving puzzles. We learn and play lots throughout each day. Our favourite thing to do together is watch or play Countdown." After a long day of caring for and sharing laughter with Josh, Amy must ensure he completes his regime of physiotherapy. He is largely on bed rest due to a pressure point on his hip, though can have 3 hours of upright chair time a day, an hour at a time. It's important he is assisted to stretch out his mostly still legs, regardless of how tired Amy is at the end of the day. She must be careful, as she does not want to make him uncomfortable, but must also remain positive to encourage Josh to support her to achieve his physio. This can be a dangerous job. If Amy moves Josh incorrectly, she can not only harm him but also harm her own body. Amy says, "Keeping Josh relaxed while doing his stretches would make today a success."
Annette's story. Whilst Debbie makes everyone a cup of tea, Annette goes upstairs to wake her mother, Marie. Though care professionals have already visited Marie this morning to support her, wash her, dress her, take her medication and make breakfast, she has got back into bed. Annette explains that her mum would now stay in bed all day as it is her safe place, and she is unsure what to do instead, as she is unable to concentrate on most things at present. Marie's memory is not as good as it used to be, and her language, problem-solving and other cognitive abilities have additionally all been affected by dementia. These challenges are now interfering with Marie's daily life. Marie no longer eats, therefore her sole source of nutrition is provided within milkshakes, of which each bottle is a nutritionally complete formula containing all essential vitamins and minerals the human body needs. This has been difficult for her daughter Annette to see. She is witnessing her strong, independent and caring mum become frail and withdrawn. Annette misses most that she is no longer parented. Her mum now rarely asks after her. Annette has organised care professionals to visit her mum 4 times a day for 30 minutes at a time. Despite being incredibly grateful for the support provided by the government, the 2 hours is not enough to keep Marie as well as possible. Therefore, on top of this care, Annette pays, through her mum's income, extra for private carers to check in and talk with her mum, and also visits herself most days. To ensure her mum is okay between visits and that everything is running smoothly, Annette installed cameras around her mum's home, of which she can check via her phone. The cameras are positioned outside the front and back doors and send alerts to Annette's phone every time movement is detected, allowing her to ensure her mum has not wandered out the house and that each carer has arrived to meet her mum's needs. Annette is within what social worker Dorothy Miller first coined in 1982 the sandwich generation. As the name suggests, individuals are effectively sandwiched between the responsibility of care to their parents, who may be ill and unable to perform various tasks, and the responsibility of supporting their own young children. Annette can be termed as a sandwich generation occupant, as she not only cares for her mum, Marie, but also her daughter, Debbie. Debbie is now 26 but has learning difficulties, which means she still needs her mum's guidance and support. In sandwich generations, it is often questioned who is supporting the individual being sandwiched. Annette has an incredibly calm nature considering the level of responsibility she has. "I can do that," is Annette's immediate response to each of her mum's several requests. "I need you with me," Marie often instructs Annette. Annette explains that she's currently able to be so calm as she has a care package around her mum. This means that in the few hours a week of popping in to spend with her mum, Annette can provide her best self and be fully present. When Annette was asked what she enjoys doing, she replied that she would like to gain employment, but quickly stated, "It would be silly to add work into my life," and Annette's full focus is required by her mum and her daughter. While the care package is in place for Marie, Annette can provide some of her focus to Debbie, supporting her to become as independent as possible. Debbie has passed her driving test, has a part-time job, volunteers at a local farm tending to the horses, and cares for her dog called Slinky. Debbie visits her nanny's house with her mum and supports where she can. Debbie is very creative and often prepares an activity for the three of them to do together. Due to Debbie's difficulties with communication, she can get frustrated when Marie does not understand her or has forgotten something. Thus, Annette sits between them, encouraging her daughter to teach them, whilst both being patient with her mum. An Annette sandwich.
Annie's story. Annie's mother had many serious health needs due to complications from having undiagnosed diabetes. Annie was close to her mum, but because they argued a lot, she found her difficult to care for. She always felt she was doing the best of her, but that her mum often had a different idea. When Annie explains her struggles supporting her mum, the saying that comes to mind is, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink." Things like asking her to go to bed early because of a hospital appointment in the morning, or trying to make sure she took her medication. Annie often felt frustrated because you cannot live someone else's life for them. You have to let them make their own choices, even if you think they are the wrong ones. Annie describes a specific moment in her caring role. This is something that happened on a few occasions in one form or another, but the moment that will be forever imprinted on Annie happened when she was 23 in 2014. Annie was standing in her kitchen waiting for her kettle to boil when the phone rang. Not expecting a call, she walked calmly into the living room to answer. Immediately she noticed that the voice on the other end of the line sounded stressed. The woman had a foreign accent that Annie didn't recognise, and the caller was stumbling over her words. "You need to come into the hospital straight away. Your mother has suffered a cardiac arrest while on dialysis, and it would be best if you were here." The words that weren't said didn't need to be, and were spiralling through Annie's mind anyway. She may be about to die, and if I don't get to her soon, I may never see her again. Instant panic set in. She opened the front door to rush outside, and then remembered she wasn't dressed. She sped up the stairs faster than she ever had before and threw some clothes on, not even bothering with underwear. What did it matter? She made her journey to the hospital. On arrival, she was told to sit in a waiting room. There was nothing she could do. Eventually, a doctor came in. Annie knew him. He had looked after her mum before. Annie and her mum were regulars at the hospital. Her mum was stable now, but during her cardiac arrest, they had worked for an hour and a half to bring her back. They didn't know if she would arrest again. He also told her that based on her mum's state of health beforehand, Annie should prepare herself for the worst, that even if her mum recovered from this incident, things were looking as if they were only going to go in one direction. After the doctor had spoken to her, she was finally able to see her mum. Intensive care was nothing like it was in the films. Annie thought it was a very busy, very open ward, with no privacy and lots of people running around. Annie tried to say a few last meaningful words to her mum, but felt stupid. Annie's mum did not die that night, but passed away 7 months later, having spent most of that time in hospital. Annie says, "Her death changed everything for me. I had been her carer all my life, from before I can even remember, with her condition gradually worsening as I got older. My point to this story is that young carers go through things that a lot of people do not have to face until they are a lot older. After my mum's death, I had to sort out things like probate, informing all the relevant authorities and clearing her house. When I spoke to a friend my age, they didn't even know what probate was. I wished so deeply that I didn't have to know what it was either. Caring can be very isolating and depressing, often feeling like you are the only one going through a traumatic situation. Living with an ill person is a painful enough process without making people go through it alone. This is where Young Carers Services really help me."
Asia's story. It is a complex journey to become a doctor in the UK, and it is not uncommon to spend around a decade of your life studying medicine. The first stage is to be accepted into medical school, and to achieve this, candidates will require a combination of GCSEs and A-levels. After 5 years of study, you may earn a medical degree. You then need to obtain a licence to then complete 2 years of more study, experiencing different specialities. Upon successful completion, trainee doctors can choose where they wish to specialise. Depending on the specialty that is chosen, this stage will take 5 to 8 years to complete. You would now be a qualified doctor. They must take part in continuous professional development, demonstrating your fitness to practice. Asia is the mother to Rayhan and Azan, two very lively young boys. Asia has not gone through the above process to become a doctor. Neither has she trained in nursing, but she finds herself providing intricate medical care daily. Azan has a rare neurological life-limiting condition, which means he is tube-fed, has kidney disease, is blind and has cerebral palsy, scoliosis and hypertonia. Being Azan's primary carer, Asia measures and provides all Azan's nutrition and medication, and a current hurdle she has had to overcome is administering 3 injections to Azan every week, piercing a needle into her little boy's tiny legs. Asia and her boy's next journey is with Azan's stage 4 kidney disease. Asia, with the doctors, had to figure out if it was worth putting Azan through dialysis or a transplant, ensuring they consider his quality of life. The decision was made to provide Azan dialysis. Asia explained that she was shocked as she didn't expect his kidneys to hit near failure so quick, his kidneys only functioning at 17% at this point, just 2% from failure. Azan is experiencing a lot of symptoms, which is increasingly hard for Asia to witness: vomiting, tiredness, shortness of breath, nosebleeds, bruising, and restless leg syndrome. Asia, with her son's needs in mind, chose to accept a peritoneal dialysis for her little boy, a treatment she can perform at home 4 times a day, 7 days a week. Asia explains that it will disrupt their lives, but it's the only option. Asia shares, "We don't know how Azan will cope with this. I don't know what I'm doing, whether I'm making the right decision or not. Everything goes out the window when you're at this stage of decision making. All the words discussed between medical teams I can't process, but I've given the go-ahead. I just want to keep him. Let's take this one day at a time, my soldier." Asia currently has help from Imi, who she employed to support Azan at home. Imi settled into the family quickly, and Asia is hugely grateful for her. Imi, however, has decided to continue her university studies and become a paediatric nurse. Asia is so pleased for Imi and knows she will be a fantastic nurse. However, this does mean that Asia needs to now look for someone to replace her. To do this, Asia needs to put out an advert online, respond to questions, interview people, complete the employment paperwork, and then train them. She needs to find someone who is vigilant and confident enough to care for a child with a life-threatening condition, a child with complex needs whose current diet and medications are essential in preserving his life. This support is crucial to Asia and her own health and well-being. Asia says, "My life was teaching, and I taught for many years, mainstream and special needs. I want to go back to it, and even now, before lockdown, I did. I started to volunteer at Azan's school, and I voluntarily taught sign language at a mainstream primary school. I want my life before Azan back. I want a part of me back. But right now, I can't. I don't want to get lost in this world of darkness. Azan comes first and always will. He's my career, my passion, my boys are my everything." Asia is so proud of her boys and loves them tremendously. She documents Azan's journey on Instagram and writes beautifully about what life is like for her little boy at Adventures of Azan.
Callum's story. At the age of 20, when most people would be in full-time studies at university or in employment, would have free time with friends, have a hobby like playing football, and possibly moving out of their family home into their own place or with a girlfriend, Callum's life was put on pause. None of this happened for Callum. When Callum was 20, his mother was diagnosed with cancer. This meant that suddenly, because no one else was living in their home or nearby, Callum became his mother's full-time carer, while she underwent life-altering treatment. When Callum began all the cooking, cleaning and shopping, while being constantly available to help his mother to the bathroom, his friends told him that his caring role was not a proper job and started to contact him less and less. Over the years, her cancer began to spread to other parts of her body. Callum's father, who had previously separated from his mother, tried to protect him from this knowledge, but Callum felt he knew things were getting worse. In 2015, after he had been caring for his mother for 4 years, a district nurse referred him for some support as a carer. He is so grateful they did, as a year later his mother died. At this point, although his mother left him the house in her will, there was a threat he would lose their home as well. His mother, who he had spent every moment of the day with for 5 years, had now gone. Who was he now? Who could he turn to? What would he do now? What was his purpose for his life? Luckily, with the carer's support, Callum was able to fight for his home, which he won a year later. He was then able to grieve for the loss of his mother. In the process, he fell into a depression. He is now, at 29, ready to tackle life again. He's training to be a gardener and has a part-time job on an allotment, which he very much enjoys. He's losing weight, building friendships, and hoping to learn to drive soon. Callum's time is now. It was on pause while caring for his mum. Although it's for sad reasons, he now has his life back and can focus on his needs and wishes. Callum says, "Life was hard when I started caring for my ma. I lost my own life, but I loved her and hated to see the pain she was in. When she died and there was the threat I would become homeless, I was unable to grieve for her properly. It all hit me when my housing was sorted, and those were pretty much my darkest days. I realised how alone I was, just me and my dog Poppy. However, I'm ready to face life again now. I really want to become a black belt in a type of martial art."
Carina's story. I have been a carer for my mother since I was 5 because of her complex mental health needs, as well as supporting my younger sister. For the last 9 years, I have also been carer for my dad because he has Parkinson's disease. My main role in the family is bad cop. I am bossy and fussy, the coordinator, but it is a skill I learnt at a young age to ensure that everybody, including me, got their needs met. I have learnt how to care for my family. I will always be loved, but I will not always be liked. Family dilemma. I did not attend an appointment with my parents and the occupational therapist, OT, who was looking at my dad's needs. My mum is so kind-natured that she takes what professionals say as facts, but she has often not given them the background story, nor has she fully understood what they have explained to her. My role here is to stay calm, to explain the same thing I have already explained 3 times, which has previously been taken as an insult, although it wasn't meant that way. My dad is slanting on the sofa, which, if he continues, will slowly crush his internal organs. I believe the OT explained that my dad must try to sit up straight, to build the muscles we use to sit straight. However, what has not been explained is that the energy needed for my dad to sit up straight is a great deal. For someone to sit on the sofa 10 hours a day, it is impossible for him to have the energy to hold himself up for that long. What is needed is a solution, but due to the depression in my family, they are often stuck on the problem. Next day, I carry an armchair in. Plan A, fingers crossed. It is important as a carer to find joy in every moment I can because of the overwhelming stress we are under. I try to bring joy to the ones I care for. I try very hard to make my family smile each day. This can be difficult when I don't feel like smiling myself, but must be done. Here we are all shopping, a job that is very tiresome, so I seize the opportunity to cuddle a giant unicorn, which I know my mum would love to do too. Then we try to convince my dad that we needed them. You can guess his answer. I hate the bottom photo. I am exhausted beyond imagination. In this moment, my mind is racing. I am hoping my parents will be able to work together to achieve a workable outcome. When do I step in? I am also consumed with fighting the health sector and the social sector to gain support for my exhausted mother and broken father, as both sectors say it's the other's responsibility. As my father's main struggle with his Parkinson's is severe anxiety. Minutes after this photo was taken, the hospital staff came into the room and began to tell me and my mother how we should support my father. We have been caring for him for 9 years. For 20 years, I have been an unpaid 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week carer. I think I know how to provide care to my parents. What I am asking for is some bloody help.
Carla's story. Carla has been a carer for 7 years. Initially, she underestimated the impact it would have on her life. Even though Cameron is in full-time education, Carla is not able to work or study because she constantly must put somebody else's needs before her own. Every single second of every single day. Cameron needs support in all aspects of his life. When he is away from Carla, she still spends her time organising things, fighting for him, advocating hard, fundraising, attending therapies, meetings, and so much more. Being a carer is a world away from the life she used to live, but she is very proud of her family. On the day of the photos, there were meltdowns, tears, and lots of anxiety, but this is her daily life. 3 years ago, a feeding tube saved Cameron's life. His feeding journey has been a roller coaster. Carla now loves the fact she can blend all her home-cooked meals, packed with all the fruit and veg a child never eats, to give to Cameron through his tube, while he snacks orally on all the food he enjoys, like ice cream and crisps. Cameron's diet plan was recently tweaked, and amazingly he has put on 3 kilograms in the past month, after losing weight over the last year. Nutrition is a constant balancing act. Carla says, "I hate to think about where we would be without it. The thought of feeding him every 4 hours through a tube used to be daunting, now it's just a normal part of our day." Morgan has been her mother's little helper since Cameron was born when she was aged 3. She is now gaining support as a young carer. When we met, Morgan was about to embark on a big life event, starting secondary school. She tells us she is excited but is nervous about getting lost as her new school is so big. Morgan helps her mum by getting the things she needs to look after Cameron and by watching him when mum needs to do something else. Morgan loves to play in their beautiful garden on the trampoline when her little sister does not get in the way. Morgan shares, "I help my mum with Cameron. I am great at looking after my little sister Indy, although she is annoying sometimes. I do not feed Cameron, but maybe when I am older. I love my family. Lockdown has been okay. I have been going to young carers Zoom meetings, which I've enjoyed, although they do feel a bit odd." Carla says, "Did you know people with a learning disability have a shorter life expectancy due to poor quality care? My son could possibly die before his time from an avoidable cause. Cameron has a list of needs resulting from his diagnosis of a rare genetic condition called Norrie disease. He will require care for the rest of his life. Cameron's support staff, who offer me some respite, now no longer feel safe to work with Cameron on a 1-to-1 basis because they feel he needs a 2-to-1 ratio to meet his needs. I have Cameron on most days, as well as care for his 2 sisters, alone. Health and Social Care decided to create a tick boxing exercise that your complex child must fit into, and if they don't, then their disability does not exist. They are not severe enough to qualify, and you must cope on your own. I am tired of being told, Mum can do it. Yes, I am a mum, and I am strong, but I am human too. My son deserves equality, and he is being treated far less than equal. He is beautiful, smiley, happy, and full of love, but the good times only come by supporting him through the bad. I will shout from the rooftops and let everyone know disabled people are worthy of so much more than they are getting." Carla shares their story on Instagram to raise awareness, @CameronSmile.
Daisy's story. At the beginning of each school year, there should be a short form for children and young people to fill in, which would include the simple question, "Is there someone in your house with a disability?" That single question could lead to many unidentified young carers being identified before they reach crisis point. This brilliant idea was formed by Daisy and her mum, Tina. Sadly, Daisy had to reach a crisis point with her mental health before she was identified as a young carer by a counsellor who referred her to a young carers support group. Daisy lights up when she talks about the group, explaining it as a chance to be a teenager, have fun, connect with other people that understand, and have support tailored to her needs. Daisy is needed at home to care for her mum. Tina has many complex health needs, which include constant pain and exhaustion. This means Daisy often spends many hours at home by her mum's side. In a little room full of treasures, including many plants, Daisy feels safe and relaxed, finding time for herself. Daisy laughs about how her plants provide the oxygen she needs when she can't leave the house, because her mum needs her nearby. One of Daisy's hobbies is reading. She enjoys many subjects, but one of her favourites is Greek mythology. Daisy shares lots of facts with me, but focuses in on one story that made her feel particularly emotional. In the author Madeline Miller's version of the myth, Achilles and Patroclus, who died before people accepted their same-sex love for one another. Daisy passionately shares a wish for people to be respected and supported, whatever their differences. We all deserve to be loved and heard. Daisy and Tina have an extraordinary bond and have built a strong network of people that understand, which has been a challenge. Tina's health conditions are not visible when you meet her, and her boundless intellectual knowledge and kindness mask them well. However, people don't see the days where Tina is unable to move and can't leave her bed. They can therefore fall away as they don't understand. Tina often puts unreasonable expectations on herself, pushing herself to mask things and do more. She reflects that this may be one of the factors in her diminished health. Tina holds a lot of guilt. She wishes she could provide what Daisy deserves and allow her to be a child. But she does need Daisy's support, and because Tina can't work, they have to get by solely on her disability benefit income. Whilst holding this caring responsibility on her young shoulders, Daisy is a strong and determined individual who is incredibly bright and extremely artistic. She is in top sets for all her GCSEs and aims to go to Oxford University to study law. During COVID-19, Daisy has thrived from doing her schoolwork at home as she has been able to be near her mum. In school, she struggles with her peers as she is much more grown up than they are, so finds it challenging to connect.
Diane's story. Diane lived in Georgia, one of the most populated states in America. With many big cities and a geographical range from the mountains to the beaches, there is so much more to Georgia than just its famous peaches. Diane's parents live in Bristol, England, roughly 6,608 miles from Georgia, and though similarly having much to offer, Bristol and the state of Georgia hold many differences. Despite the distance, Diane and her family regularly visited one another and communicated often through phone calls. During one of Diane's visits to her parents' home, she noticed that both her mother and father were starting to become more frail, and their mobility was deteriorating. Boris, Diane's father, during this visit, climbed upon a chair to change a light bulb and slipped off of the chair. Luckily, he was not injured, but was very shaken by what could have happened. There had been many people over that day who he could have asked to complete the job, but he impulsively struggled onto the chair to change the bulb. Diane knew that her parents would find it difficult to admit that they are struggling and really needed some support. Diane made the decision to put her home in Georgia up for rent and move countries into her parents' home. She stated, "It was easier for me to move in than for other family members." When questioned what she meant by easier, Diane responded, "Well, logistically, as I don't have any children." Emotionally, she went on to explain that she did not actually feel ready to leave her life in the USA, but things just snowballed and her parents needed her. Boris and Barbara live in a large house, therefore fortunately there was room available for Diane to use. Diane's parents live within a friendly community and Diane is regularly asked, "How's your mum and dad?" Diane knows the value of her parents having such a supportive local community to feel connected and to not fall into loneliness. Diane works full-time as admin support within social care, cares for her parents full-time, and runs her own business selling handmade candles. Though her employer is understanding and she loves her parents and business, it can sometimes all feel quite overwhelming. Diane shares that her biggest challenge is organising, attending, and keeping on top of all of her parents' hospital appointments. These appointments are increasing with time due to her parents' age and her mother recently being diagnosed with cancer. Diane is, however, devoted to ensuring her parents have all they need and are safe and well. While talking to Diane and hearing all about her life and business, she suddenly stopped and expressed, "For once, it's not about Mum and Dad, it's about me."
Fortune's story. Fortune and Tim have been married for 40 years. Their secret to a happy marriage is to always make time for one another, listen, and have lots of cuddles. As time has passed, Fortune has become Tim's carer due to his being diagnosed with arthritis and COPD. Fortune uses the skills she's learned from being a paid care worker for many years and the love she has for Tim to ensure he has the support he needs. Fortune also still works as a care worker, which gives her time out and independence. In their dining room, Fortune and her husband Tim sit together for their photo to be taken. "Smile," encourages Tina, as she takes hundreds of photos to try and get the best one. Fortune smiles, but as she's smiling, she's thinking of all the things she needs to get done today and the worries she has. Fortune has paid work today, but to be able to go to work and cover the costs of their bills, she must take time organising everything that needs to be prepared for Tim to be safe at home alone. Fortune says, "I enjoy work, but sometimes wonder if it's worth the added stress to my life. My mind runs away with these thoughts and I forget to be present for the photo, but also to be with my husband, whom I love." Diamond dots is a hobby Fortune and Tim have together. There is no hierarchy here. They sit in their dining room and do something as a couple, as equals, away from Fortune's daily responsibilities of being his carer. Fortune sometimes feels she knows Tim more than she knows herself. She explains she can sense when he's in pain before he communicates it himself. She knows when he needs to rest and when he's well. She giggles and shares that sometimes she knows what Tim needs even before he does. Fortune says, "As we sit here, I know that Tim is safe. I don't have to worry as he is right by my side. I can see him here. I know that today is a good day. He can enjoy today, or at least this moment." Fortune comes in from work in the evening, gives Tim his medication, cleans, cooks for them both, cleans again, and then walks Callie, their 10-year-old border collie. She's standing, unable to sit down because the buzzing energy of the day is still inside her. With Callie now asleep and Tim nodding off, Fortune rolls out the canvas on the table and begins placing each coloured diamond into its space to form a picture of a mountain landscape. Fortune says, "My racing thoughts slow, my breathing calms, and my focus for the first time all day is just on one thing. I have recently found diamond dots and love to create a picture of many sparkling faces full of colour. This one isn't for me, but for a friend."
Gill's story. Although caring for Bobby is no walk in the park, it is outside, climbing trees and walking through rivers, that he feels happiest. His little sister right by his side, they explore and climb whilst getting very muddy. Gill and Tom love seeing their children happy and believe kids are meant to have dirty knees. Bobby has a diagnosis of autism and his sister Izzy is in the process of being tested as well. They are both very bright and inquisitive, trying to understand the world, just a little differently from other children of their ages. Watching her children climb trees, Gill can only wish that she was up there with them. But after several knee operations and a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, it would be too painful for her. Izzy said, "It's our favourite thing climbing." And Bobby says, "My cat is nature, and that's why I love my cat." Gill needs to be constantly alert to Bobby's emotions and behaviours so as to notice his warning signs and prevent a meltdown. If the signs aren't spotted in time, he becomes extremely distressed and unable to calm himself. When he reaches that level of upset, only Gill can calm him, and so she needs to be available at any given moment. When Bobby is at school, she is always aware that she may get a call and must jump in the car to get her distressed little boy. Gill says, "It is often said that Bobby can't communicate what he's feeling, but I think that's incorrect. You can see that he's frustrated, he shouts, or when he's bored, he leaves his seat. He shows his emotions, just maybe not in a socially acceptable way. However, it is so important to hear his way of communicating and empower him to keep connecting." This year has been a challenging one for many. Bobby has loved being at home as this is his safe place. It is a space where he can be completely himself. Gill loves to see him so comfortable, and as a family they have come to love each other's quirks. But during this time, Gill has needed to fill many different roles she did not apply for, has no training in, and gets no financial support towards. Throughout the pandemic, she has had to be Bobby's speech therapist as his regular therapist has been unable to enter the school, and Bobby struggles to engage with video calls. Bobby's speech impairment means that it can be difficult to understand what he is trying to tell you, and this frustrates him. Missing regular speech therapy would not only impede his progress, but could lead to him going backwards. Gill spends so much of her time coordinating. She manages therapies, education, health appointments and daily tasks, as well as trying to meet her own personal and education needs. Right now she's studying psychology with the Open University, which she loves. All of this happens within the confines of a small house, so it can be hard to find your own space to breathe. Gill says, "Everyone in my house has different needs, and some see the world differently. Tom, my husband, works full-time. Izzy loves social interaction and struggled during lockdown, but found if she climbed on top of her toys in the garden, she could talk over the fence to her neighbours. Bobby, however, is quite happy on his own, often struggling in social situations. My role is to try and keep on top of all these needs and ensure they're all met, often alone."
Helle's story. Helle's dilemma. As a single, professional, independent woman, Helle wants to be strong and do the right thing for her family. Looking after Johanna, who needs 24/7 care, however, has taken its toll. Working full-time, managing a handful of carers, administering Johanna's training and needs, filling out endless forms in order to get help from social services, along with the everyday cleaning, cooking and washing, is just not possible to fit in if Helle is also to meet her own needs. Exhausted from constantly climbing uphill in every aspect of her life, Helle has, for her own health, had to go on sick leave from her teaching job while she decides what her and Johanna's future looks like. In reality, Helle works 2 full-time jobs. Looking after her disabled child demands her to be present 100% both mentally and physically. If she doesn't work full-time, she cannot pay the bills. If she looks after Johanna full-time, she will feel stuck and trapped in her home 24/7. Stress or loneliness. Johanna is 13 years old. She has unspecified psychological disorder, autism, and neuromuscular scoliosis, which means she develops differently to other teenagers. This means that daily her mother needs to stretch her muscles and joints to ensure she grows in a way that best helps her. This is a skill her mother doesn't know, and therefore a physiotherapist comes to their home sometimes to show her how to help Johanna in the best way. Helle says, "I'm trying to take in all the information being shared with me, while many thoughts are going through my mind. Picking up that Johanna is not enjoying this, but knowing that it is the best thing for her long term. Caring for Johanna has brought a lot of challenging and joyous emotions to my life, as well as many new skills." Helle's 2 adult children are tough. They weren't always. There were times when they refused to go out with Johanna because she could be so loud and so different. However, as embarrassing as it can be, all 3 of them now can rise above the others' stares. Something that frustrates Helle is that it is almost impossible to get into a playground with a wheelchair. If you can get in, there is no wheelchair-friendly equipment. This can be upsetting and exhausting, as she must explain it to a little girl who is excited by the playground she sees. Helle says, "And of course, it's upsetting when we are out and people avoid us in the street because Johanna shouts and squeaks loudly. I don't blame them, the sound is scary, and I know that they are just ignorant and frightened of the unknown. I believe that people who behave aggressively or are unkind are people who suffer themselves or feel inferior. Most people are kind. We have learnt how to have room for everybody who is different from most people. We now all feel enriched. Every day and night, Helle must prepare to endure deafening howls and endless squealing, to the point where she now has to wear ear defenders to protect herself. This is Johanna's form of communication, and Helle, as her mother, would never wish to quieten her language, but her high pitch can take its toll. Something that does calm Johanna is music. Johanna loves music. She moves and drums to the rhythm as her mother watches proudly, witnessing her talent. Helle says, "In the morning when I wake Johanna, I take a moment to truly connect with her. I look deep into her eyes. This, I believe, starts the day right, us connected to achieve the day together."
Karen's story. In a beautiful Victorian house where a big furry cat named Maeve curls up in the sunlight lives Colin and his daughter Karen. At the age of 57, Karen hoped to be thinking about semi-retirement from her career in marketing and public affairs consultancy to fulfil her travelling dreams. This hope was altered when her mother died. When her mother died, her father required more care than she initially thought. While remembering her mother's words spoken just before passing, "Don't give up on your life for your father," she tried to create a plan. Colin did not wish to go into care home, but was increasingly becoming unable to live alone, and because of this, Karen made decisions to support her father into moving into her home. As Karen previously lived alone, she had the physical space for her father now. However, she soon found it increasingly hard to provide the mental space he required. Whilst working full-time and sustaining friendships and hobbies, she quickly found herself declining events and making big changes to her lifestyle. Karen was unable to honour her mother's advice and has had to sacrifice much of her previous and possible future life for her father. To meet Colin's needs, she must be in a strict routine, constantly thinking for 2 and regularly being at home. Karen can sometimes feel annoyed and resentful, but then feels guilty. She knows it is not her father's fault that he has developed Alzheimer's disease. Karen explains that people can spend 20 minutes with her father and say, "Your dad is so sweet," but they don't see what caring for him daily is like. Just this morning, she had to explain that she had forgotten to buy in some bananas for breakfast to Colin 5 times, each time receiving his look of frustration. Colin is a small man, sat in his chair, his feet dangling just above the ground. Now, as Karen's 24/7 responsibility, Colin, Karen explains, needs a lot from her and is very reliant on her presence. Though Karen's life has changed dramatically, she is proud of the role she played in her father's life, and she obviously loves him very much. To the outside world, she may not look like a carer, but she ensures she tells the world. She explains that people often think carers look downtrodden or on low income, but we're all different. Karen now works from home with her office on the ground floor next to where her father sits. She has organised her life so that she can provide the care her father needs, work, and attends a craft club which she loves. While Karen shares her story, she feels it is uninteresting, later realising that perhaps this perception arose because the care that she provides for her father is expected of us. We must care for our parents like they cared for us. We must care for the sick and injured. Should this be the case? Should it be that we give up on all that we build and our future aspirations to purely care for someone unpaid, untrained and alone? What if we don't want to or get frustrated whilst caring for someone? Does this make us a bad person? Should we struggle in silence as our struggle is our duty?
Kay and Tom's story. Kay and Tom's caring journeys started when they were both very young, though their experiences were very different. Kay's sister needed full-time support, involving a lot of medical and personal care, and as she and Kay had a very close relationship, Kay provided a lot of the care her sister needed. Kay shares that she loves her sister and knew she was unable to survive without her care, therefore was always the first person to run to her sister's side when she called. As a result of the level of care Kay was providing, she was referred to her local young carers service at a young age. She attended as many activities and groups as she could, building an understanding of her role and her rights, while developing lifelong friendships and spending vital time being a child. Tom, on the other hand, cared for his family members from a young age, but was not made aware of his local young carers service. He provided many hours of care which were unseen by his wider social systems. Tom was only identified as a young carer when he met Kay. After 11 years, unidentified and unsupported, Tom initially did not believe Kay when she explained that he had been a young carer for many years, his response being that it was just something he did or had to do. Sadly, during the first few months of Tom and Kay's relationship, Kay's sister was registered onto palliative care. As if this was not challenging enough for Kay to process, her sister's social worker also told Kay that she must no longer provide any of her sister's care. At this point, Kay had been her sister's carer for almost 12 years. She asked herself, who am I if not a carer? Though Kay can understand that the social worker may have thought she was doing what was best for her, she explained that immediately stopping all the care she was providing, some of which she loved to provide, contributed to her experiencing a mental and physical health breakdown. Kay was left feeling as though without an identity, away from the carer identity she grew up with. In the couple of years following, Kay was diagnosed with many health conditions, some of which she may have been born with, but had masked up until this point to not add worry for her parents. Tom has since become Kay's carer, a role which he loves. He loves Kay and wishes to provide her with the care she needs and deserves. In 2019, Tom and Kay married, both aged 19. They knew they were going to love one another forever after the health crises they had experienced early in their relationship together. Kay also explained that on her sister's bucket list was to see Kay and Tom marry, so they fulfilled that wish. Kay is now a young ambassador with her local council, standing up for young carers, young disabled people, and the LGBTQ+ community. She is also completing a university degree. Tom, while supporting his wife, is a paid care worker and is focusing on his transitional journey, taking testosterone and becoming the man he has always dreamed of. 10-pin bowling is where you'll find the pair spending quality time together. Tom has won many bowling awards, being accepted into his first male competition, giving him the most pride. A sign hangs boldly in their flat which states, "Don't let anyone steal your magic."
Khaas Story. Caring does not discriminate. You can become a carer from as young as 5 years old, or at any stage of your life. Carers can care for their parents, siblings, sons or daughters, their nieces, nephews, friends or neighbours. Carers can care for anyone. Carers are also from any ethnicity, have various beliefs and live across the world. What I'm trying to communicate is that carers are all around us. In fact, 3 in 5 people will be carers at some point in their lives. This statistic taken from Carers UK 2019. And carers are not just carers. They are first an individual who has their own needs, values, hopes and dreams. With this in mind, and the fact that carers save the UK economy £132 billion per year, an average of £19,336 per carer, we must provide care to carers. Khaas Bristol is the only service of its kind across the southwest. They support black and minority ethnic parent carers and their disabled children. They offer a range of respite and educational activities for children and their families, which are offered alongside support, information and advice. Khaas combines cultural competence in working with the BME community within a workforce equipped with the skills and knowledge to deliver services that meets the needs of the community they work with. The project empowers and enables children with disabilities and their carers to have access to relevant and appropriately designed community-based resources to improve their quality of life. One activity they ran in 2021 was a trip to Barry Island, allowing carers and their families the chance to enjoy a vibrant coastal town away from their daily pressures and be able to connect with others in similar situations to them. "I can't wait to go on all the rides and paddle in the sea," said one child who attended. "It's wonderful to be outside and see this spray of flowers," a parent carer shared with us. Check out Khaas's website to find out more at www.khaas.co.uk or contact them on 0117 955 4070 or khaas_Bristol@yahoo.co.uk.
Kuldeep's story. Kuldeep and her husband George provides care to one another. Their needs are met by utilising each other's skills and working together. Though their home is often busy with family and friends visiting and passing by, and their son tries to help where he can, they are often alone in their caring roles. Kuldeep explains, "I can't do everything like I used to." Kuldeep was born in India on a rainy day according to her mother, and despite some idea of the month and year, the exact date of Kuldeep's birth has been lost over time. She has never owned a birth certificate. Now, at the age of approximately 70, and with her own health condition, Kuldeep is finding it increasingly difficult to provide her share of care in her relationship. Kuldeep is an amazing cook. In their home, she will consistently cook using fresh ingredients, adding many Indian herbs and spices to each dish. She loves this role and gives it her utmost effort, but is now struggling to keep up with the level of cooking she had previously always provided for her family. Kuldeep additionally shares that sometimes her labour can go unappreciated, as she has always been the one to cook and clean for others. She is, however, now worried about becoming unable to perform these duties. George uses his skills in finances and organisation to keep on top of bills and paperwork, of which Kuldeep is grateful for, as she feels she does not possess these skills yet knows of their importance. This is the way the couple have looked after each other for many years. They were both young when their marriage was arranged, and it was commonplace around that time for women to be unable to go to work, and thus spent much time with their mothers, sisters and aunties, learning how to look after their homes and their husbands. Kuldeep explains that luckily times aren't different now, though she does not feel resentment when reflecting on her young adulthood. She states, "It was just the way it was, and I love George." Kuldeep has a family both in India and more locally who she tries to see as often as possible, this being her chance to be free from her home and routine, to be able to have some fun and be cooked for. Kuldeep also enjoys sewing and makes most of her 3-piece suits by hand. At what stage does one become a carer? To receive carer's allowance from the government, you need to be providing care to someone that cannot live without your support for more than 35 hours per week. How do you tally the minutes it takes to cook, clean, organise medication, shop, assist someone up off the sofa, help someone put on their shoes, and be nearby in case someone needs you? When does a normal division of labour become a caring role? Do we need to know what is wrong with an individual for us to accept they require a carer? Is it okay for somebody to simply self-identify as a carer? All questions here potentially generate different views, or equally can be without conclusive answers. Laurence's story. It was her legs that were the first to forget. Taking a simple step led, in Diana's case, to many serious stumbles and falls, culminating in her becoming mostly confined to a chair. After many tests and brain scans, she was given a diagnosis of neurological disease, PSP, one symptom being a serious loss of balance. A full description can be found on Google, Laurence, her husband, tells me. He has no time to expand, as Diana now requires 24-hour care from the man that knows her best. Google tells me that progressive supranuclear palsy, PSP, is a degenerative disease involving the gradual deterioration and death of specific volumes of the brain. Diana's brain loss has reached a point where she now has difficulty speaking and swallowing. Any mouthful of food could cause her to choke. To avoid this, Laurence cuts all her food into 15mm pieces and thickens every drink with a powder. He explains that this enables Diana's brain more time to close her lungs. Diana used to be the cook in the household, so Laurence has had to learn fast. He finds cooking rather frustrating, as it takes up time he could be spending by his wife's side. Diana was not only the cook for herself, her husband and their 3 children, but would sometimes host parties of over 70 people. Laurence reminisces about the times their barn was covered in decorations and filled with people around tables of local homemade food and punch, drinking, eating, singing, dancing and laughter. Lots of laughter. Laurence says, I always try to give Diana a good lunch with 2 or 3 courses, and it breaks the day up for her. I'm very happy being Diana's main carer, and I'm pleased to give back a little of the care she has given me over 55 years of marriage. Sometimes tensions are caused by her communication difficulties and slow movement if we are in a hurry. But these are always temporary, and she never complains. My main problem is the lack of hours in the day. Laurence and his family are full of beautiful stories about their adventures. Laurence was a civil engineer before he retired. Diana was a social worker before she left to care for her children. At university, they used to meet in what was named the Crow's Nest, a plant room on the roof of the engineering building, somewhat unofficially used as the HQ for the sailing club. As they tell me the story, I imagine them joyful and giggly, excited about the world and their possibilities within it. Fast forward many years, when Laurence was planning his retirement, he was told he needed a triple bypass. While he was waiting, he decided to buy a boat. He's chuckling as he explains to me that the man selling the boat wouldn't let him sign the deal until after the bypass because it was a life-threatening operation. Laurence survived and was soon sitting on his new boat Anastasia with Diana by his side. Along with sailing, Diana also loves horses. She used to help out at the local pony club and riding for the disabled, teaching children to ride. Her youngest daughter now runs a business around horses, creating and selling riding gear, while owning several horses herself. Diana loves to watch her grandchildren ride. Laurence says, Diana loved coordinating and she was good at it. She had her own special book where she wrote down all the fine details to each party she threw. She was known for hosting the best. She loved the camaraderie. We hope she still feels this through living near to our children and 6 beautiful grandchildren and spending time with them. Due to Diana's condition, her health is steadily deteriorating. However, what I noticed about Laurence and his family is that they all live in the very present, connecting with Diana as much as possible and learning to adapt to ensure she feels included, supported and loved. Laurence recently had to make the decision that Diana needed more care than he could provide, and they employed paid carers. He is, however, still a huge part of Diana's care, with papers everywhere coordinating her healthcare, finances and many more aspects of their day-to-day life. Because of Laurence's engineering background, he's a brilliant problem solver. This has come in handy in many areas, including mealtimes. Diana is still able to feed herself, but she lacks some coordination, so things can become messy. Napkins would fall and adult bibs just didn't feel right, so Laurence sourced dentist straps to keep the napkin securely in place. Laurence has a love of tractors. When he can have a moment alone, he spends it with his vintage tractors, Ferguson, President and single-cylinder Field Marshal. Laurence says, I keep my hand in with Diana's care, and I care for her alone on Sundays, as this ensures I'm aware of any changes in her support needs. Diana is unable to communicate her needs, which can be frustrating for both of us. She knows what she wants to say, but her brain doesn't operate her body the way it should, which means her speech has become limited. Although it takes me much longer to support Diana on my own, leading to us not having breakfast until 11 a.m, I want to make sure I don't become oblivious to her deteriorating health. I want to be with her through this.
Lianne and Ruby's story. Ever since Lianne was young, she has provided care to her disabled sister. She grew up being the lowest in her family's hierarchy, due to others having more needs than her, and though she understood why this was, she sometimes felt alone and frustrated. It was expected of Lianne to help care for her sister when her parents struggled, and as she was never aware of any young carers' services, she lost a lot of her childhood. Lianne's parents did the best they could whilst both working full-time and with the limited resources they had. When Lianne was a young adult, she left the family home and started her own family, though always stayed nearby for her sister. Lianne gave birth to 2 beautiful girls, Ruby and Xanthi, and when Lianne's sister gave birth to a tiny baby girl who she named Evie, the family were pleased to welcome another new member to the family. With all the girls being a similar age, this brought about excitement regarding the potential for them to grow alongside each other. As time passed and Evie got older, Lianne's sister began to struggle to care for her. Lianne knew this was another moment when she needed to help her sister, and when Evie turned 6 years old, she was welcomed into Lianne's home. It was then noticed that Evie had additional needs and required extra care in order to thrive. During this time, Lianne was beginning to struggle more with her back, and she had a lot of pain following a back injury which would probably never heal. Lianne is a fantastic pool player. However, her hobby and her love for pool has been hampered by her back injury. She must now forfeit matches due to running out of strength. She does have her own pool table at home and tries to teach her girls how to play, something they all enjoy doing together. Due to Lianne's pain and Evie's additional needs, Ruby, Lianne's oldest daughter, began to pick up more and more of the responsibilities within the family home, lifting and moving anything heavy, spending time entertaining her little sister and cousin, supporting Evie in her development, and caring for the family dog, Griffin, are amongst some of her duties. Lianne noticed early on that Ruby was a young carer as she witnessed her little girl take on responsibilities above and beyond what is common of a girl her age, and she also noticed the similarities to her own experience growing up. Lianne wanted to make sure that Ruby had a fulfilled childhood, as she knows what it's like to be a young carer and how challenging finding your own identity and getting your own needs met can be. Understandably, with her own health difficulties, 3 children to care for, 1 with additional needs, and the care that she provides for her sister, Lianne finds balancing everybody's needs challenging. Lianne has built an open and honest relationship with Ruby, sharing, "This is Ruby's story, and I want her to feel she can talk about anything." Their relationship allows them to negotiate well and ensure Ruby's voice is heard. Ruby attends and volunteers for her local youth club, which she loves to do. Ruby is mature and independent, and though this should be celebrated, there needs to be an understanding that this has come from facing many challenges. Lianne also makes sure that she and Ruby spend time alone together, often sitting in the car with music loudly playing. Lianne shares that even though Ruby is now 14 years old, she still sometimes approaches her with arms open wide for a hug. These moments Lianne treasures and feels reassured that Ruby doesn't feel alone and frustrated, like she sometimes did when she was a young carer. Lisa and Hollie's story. Lisa is the mother in a very busy home, consisting of 5 teenage and adult children, 3 dogs, 2 cats, fish, and let's not forget her husband, Andy. Lisa beams with pride when talking about each of her intelligent and caring children. She goes on to share that her family may not be a typical one due to the disabilities within the home, but she would not change it for the world. Lisa has a son, Finn, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 11. This followed many years of her little boy being called naughty, despite Lisa knowing that he was really trying his best at everything. Hollie is one of Lisa's youngest children, aged 13, and her confident smile shines. Hollie has taken on a lot of caring responsibilities for her big brother, not only due to her beautiful caring nature, but also because of her and Finn's incredible relationship. Hollie and Finn have an incredible sibling relationship. Hollie is Finn's sister, teacher, protector and friend. Finn says that she explained the world to him. Hollie automatically stepped into these roles from a young age, being identified as a young carer around 7 years old. Throughout her short life, she has always put her brother first, including choosing her own friends based on whether they will understand and respect Finn. She has faced a lot of bullying from her peers due to her caring responsibilities and often takes it upon herself to educate them that negative terms and discriminations are spiteful and incorrect. To educate her peers, Hollie has run assemblies and has admitted to nudging a boy, the ringleader of bullying children with disabilities, into a bush. The boy has since left the school, and as a result of that and Hollie's ever-growing confidence, the bullying has stopped. Hollie says, "It can be frustrating to have to reassure someone and explain yourselves at all times, especially when it's your older brother and many others do not have to. I have my mum to offload and ramble to though, she understands." Hollie is always on guard for her big brother. She watches to see if he's okay, checks that the room is not too loud, too bright or too busy. She is often the first to recognise when Finn is not feeling okay. To most people, these warning signs are unrecognisable. If these signs are missed, he can become overwhelmed and begins to self-harm. Even when Hollie is not with Finn, she is thinking about whether he's okay, or if he would be okay if he was with her in the space she's in. It is so important that Hollie's needs and voice are heard. The Young Carers Service Hollie has been attending for 6 years has nominated her for a Carers Hero Award. Due to COVID-19, the ceremony can't be held in person, but it is going to be live streamed to Hollie's front room, where her mum Lisa is planning a big celebration with decorations, food, friends and a dinner party dress code. Hollie says, "It's hard to explain really. I can just tell when Finn is not okay, even before anyone else. He just kind of goes into himself, gets more tense and quiet. That's the point when I try and think of something that would do to help, like go and get a drink or go for a walk. If plan A doesn't work, I always make sure I have a plan B." Lisa wants the very best for all her children, and after fighting to get a diagnosis for Finn not to be simply labelled as a naughty boy, she then had the challenge to find the right educational setting for him. The nearest college to the family home which suits Finn's additional needs is in Frome, a 1-hour drive every day. This college is somewhere Finn tends to feel safe and is thriving, and so Lisa will continue the fight to ensure he stays there for the rest of his education. One of Finn's challenges is that he has no facial recognition. He is unable to even recognise his own mother's face. He explains that he only knows that it is his mum when she talks because she is loud. Lisa giggles at this comment, but it is hard to imagine how heartbreaking it is that her son is unable to recognise her smile. Whilst looking after a household of 7, including a son with autism, Lisa also works in a care home kitchen. She often finds that she is unable to stop and rest. What she loves, when she does have the free time, is to bake and then share what she has made with her friends, family and neighbours. Lisa says, "There is never a dull moment in my house, but I love it that way. I couldn't imagine it any other way."
Lucy's story. Parents can only hope that their children outlive them, reaching a ripe old age. Lucy sadly was one of those parent carers who, with her mum and daughter beside her, sat holding her little boy's hand as he took his last breath. Darren was just a few months away from his 18th birthday when he passed away. Lucy describes Darren as fun, quirky and a little naughty, with a beautiful smile throughout the challenges he faced. As Lucy shared about Darren, you could see the immense sadness within her, but what also resided was a glow of pure love. When you become a mother, you know that the little life you created is in your hands, at least until they become a teenager and begin making their own decisions. Darren, however, needed Lucy throughout his life to ensure that all his needs were met daily, even after his teenage years. Lucy did this for 17 years until Darren's death, when she had to make the decision that no one ever wishes to make. Darren was diagnosed with brain tumour. Initially, Darren was offered a space at an adult hospice, but due to Darren's other conditions, he was still very childlike, and Lucy felt he would feel safer in a children's hospice. Lucy is incredibly grateful for the team at the hospice. While watching her little boy fighting for his life, Lucy had to make an unimaginable decision. It was suggested that Darren may survive if given a tracheostomy. However, Lucy explained firmly that Darren would have hated it and pulled at it. The two most precious things for him were talking and eating, both not possible with a tracheostomy. She felt it would have been a selfish decision on her part to keep him alive, as he would not have been comfortable. Everyone stood by Lucy's decision, and Darren passed away with his 3 favourite people by his side. 3 years later, Darren's pyjamas are still folded neatly on his bed. Lucy knows he will not return, but is comforted by ensuring her son Darren is still present in conversations. Lucy explains that her parenting role for Darren has changed. She is still trying to adjust to no longer being his full-time carer, but she is still Darren's mum. Her new role now is to weekly visit his grave and tend to it, placing fresh flowers while ensuring for Darren there are no, what he would call, stinky pink ones, and letting all know he is still deeply loved. The graveyard is beautiful where Darren is laid to rest. You can see fields for miles, though a sadness hangs in the air. The sound of the busy ring road nearby acts as a reminder that life continues. Lucy, with support of Darren's older sister, wrote the words for his headstone. You came into this world so loudly, travelled through life so uniquely, and left so quietly. Your presence is missed by all who knew you. On the back in Braille, a communication tool he used due to his blindness, they wrote, always loved, forever missed, never forgotten. Lucy has taken the love and learning that Darren provided her and has trained as an occupational therapist, a job that she loves and can provide so much personal experience into. Maria's story. As a carer for her son, Maria finds the most difficult times are during transitions and fighting for his and her rights. These are some matters that have been very present in her life recently. Maria's son had turned 18, and in England this means that you are no longer under children and young people's services, but are now within adult services. This is a whole new system to understand and navigate. The main event that occurred for Maria's son was needing to leave his existing college to start at a new college. This meant leaving a school that he loved and had attended for 13 years. Many of Maria's son's friends did not move with him to college, which has been additionally very challenging for him. Not only did he have this transition to cope with, but the council then told Maria that no transport would be provided for at least the first term. Maria's son has always been provided transport to and from his educational provider, and the local offer for his new college is a 45-minute drive from their home. He would not be able to take 2 public transport buses each way on his own. Maria was unsure what the council was expecting to happen. Did she have to quit her job to take her son to college each day, allowing him to continue his education? Or would he just not be able to start college this term? The latter option, leaving him at home, who would care for him? He can stay home alone for only a short time. Either way, she would have had to quit her job. It is a common occurrence for Maria to set aside her own wishes in order to ensure her son's needs are met. This is just another example. With her husband Rich and eldest son by her side, Maria began researching, and from reading policies and legislations, she found that it is law for children and young people under the age of 25 years who have an EHCP, an Education Healthcare Plan, to be provided transport to their educational provision, the Educational Act 1996. Now equipped with this information, Maria felt confident enough to call the Department of Education within her local council to state her son's rights and demand his transport is put in place. The Transport Department flippantly stated that their situation has been the case for years. This case is putting disabled children and young people's education at risk, whilst adding pressure to a time of transition which can be difficult for many. In this situation, carers are having to find the energy and confidence to be able to fight for their loved ones' rights. This service should be provided in law as it is essential. Maria states that the services were breaking the law and discriminating against her son's rights. After this conversation, Maria's son was provided daily transport to and from his college. However, this is only because Maria spent hours researching while panicking and then built the confidence to speak up. While Maria's son is receiving transport to his new college, Maria knows that other young people are not, despite it being vital for their education and family's well-being. Stepping forward to speak up for other families worries Maria, bringing concern that the transport her son receives may be affected if she does so. Maria has watched her son grow so much in the last few years. Specifically, he is becoming more independent and has now started a voluntary role in a charity shop. She knows that this is partly thanks to the support gained from his amazing school and hopes he progresses even further now that he is attending college.
Mark and Carol's story. It takes a village to raise a child, but where is the village for our parents when they become older and frail? How many people does it take to support an elderly relative? To provide the necessary and deserved love and support for the people who were our own village when we were children? Time has passed. You've fled your parents' nest and you have a home, career and children of your own. How do you make the decision between giving up the life you've built to care for the person you love and finding external care for them? What if they don't want to go into a care home? What if appropriate care is just not available? These are the questions many of us will face at some point in our lives. No decision is necessarily right or wrong, but each can produce a great deal of guilt and sacrifice. Carol's loving father died in 2010, leaving Rita, Carol's mother, living alone. Rita was regularly calling, needing help, often falling and starting to really struggle living on her own. Carol and her son Mark were running back and forth from their home to Rita's, offering care. This was beginning to impact their health, career and relationships. Thus a huge decision needed to be made. Should Rita go into a care home, which is something she does not want, or do they support Rita within their own home, moving her and her many belongings into their home? Luckily, Carol had a small spare room in her home and the decision was made. Rita moved in. They're still in the process of moving Rita's year's worth of belongings, but Rita has begun to settle in their home, though not too pleased that they don't cook many greens. Carol and Mark continue an amazing teamwork approach to care for Rita. We never know what life has in front of us, Rita shares, and she talks of how incredibly grateful she is for her family. Mark is responsible for many aspects of his nan's care, supporting her when she wakes, making breakfast, giving medication, putting in her hearing aids, as well as many other tasks. He also oversees all appointments and bills, managing and organising it all, which can be a challenging job when all must be completed between his and his mother's work. When they have time off from work, the days are often filled with taking Rita to her appointments and catching up on care needs they've been unable to do during their busy weeks. Though caring can be, and often is, one huge, challenging juggling act, Mark loves his Nan and Rita loves Mark, though in her words, apparently everyone loves Mark from the moment they meet him. While giggling, Rita shared she often wishes to hide Mark's keys down the back of the radiator so he's unable to go to work and instead spends time with her. Mark recently experienced a breakdown and his health plummeted. However, he's not let this hold him back, and he battles on to improve his well-being and to build hope for the future once more. He's now involved in an incredible number of hobbies, interests and roles in his community. You're also now looking at the Guinness World Record holder for the largest top trump collection and someone who's abseiled down the side of Southmead Hospital.
Mary's story. As long as there is breath in my body, I will continue to care for Shirley, was one of Mary's first sentences to us. These sisters are incredible. At the age of 68, Mary opened her home to Shirley, who at the age of 75 was diagnosed with dementia. She has now lived with her sister for 8 years. Mary has created a clear and supportive routine for her sister, ensuring that Shirley upholds as much independence and strength as possible. Mary knows that caring for Shirley will become more difficult, considering her own age and health, and though she is determined to always be there for her sister, she fears that if Shirley doesn't keep her mind and body as strong as possible, she won't be able to continue to look after her. If Shirley becomes unable to walk, Mary does not have the strength to lift or carry her sister. Got to let Shirley do what she can. Breaks my heart sometimes, Mary explains. Mary has lived in her home for 53 years, and though neighbours have come and gone, she ensures she is welcoming to all and supports anyone she can in her community, from putting out lemonade for the recycling staff to taking over apple crumble to the new couple moving in a few houses down. Mary's daughter lives across the road, but Mary explains that she has her own life with a family, job, house to sustain and children, but she supports whenever she can. Mary is kind, generous and loves people. For Mary to gain some respite from caring, Shirley attends a club 3 times a week called New Beginnings. Mary explains that recently she went through high amounts of fear and stress as the cost of the club increased. Mary explains she was angry. Perhaps she was also scared as the sisters were unable to afford the new cost. Shirley massively benefited from this club. She feels supported and everyone loves her there. Luckily, after a protest for Mary, an agreement was made that fits the income of Shirley's pension so that she can continue attending. When Shirley goes to her club, Mary takes the opportunity to do all she wishes to do, such as going shopping and getting her nails done, as well as the housework to get everything nice for when Shirley comes home. All of Mary's plans must work with Shirley, ensuring times and dates match with the club or for when someone is available to be with Shirley. Recently, Mary was booked in for a knee replacement surgery, a big operation. She called social care to state very clearly and honestly that she could not care for Shirley while she was having and recovering from the operation. Mary explained that she had to push and push to ensure Shirley's needs were met, while allowing her space and time to recover from this operation. She had to give her local council an ultimatum in the end. If you can't put support into care for Shirley, I will have to cancel my operation and you will end up caring for both of us, Mary said. Mary explained that the council fought back. Can't you buy ready meals and Shirley can cook them, was one of their suggestions. Mary had to keep explaining herself. Shirley can't unlock the front door, let alone cook a meal. If Mary is not there, Shirley wouldn't eat at all, as she wouldn't remember to. Mary had to stand up for her rights as a carer and for Shirley's rights, all while fearing she may not be able to have the operation she desperately needed. Mary managed to gain the support needed and is so thankful that she had the operation. However, now needs the other knee operated on and is worried about going through the same fight again for the support for Shirley. Shirley shares, "I don't know what I would do without Mary. If everyone had a sister like me, they would be lucky." Shirley is aware she has dementia and gets confused sometimes with her memory, not being as good as it used to be. Shirley needs Mary's constant attention. During a shower, Mary will prompt Shirley where and what to wash next. Under your arms, neck and breasts. Shirley will comply to everything Mary says as she is aware she needs her guidance. On Mary's fireplace there is a plaque that reads, "Enter as strangers, leave as friends." This we can completely agree with. Mary and Shirley are kind, honest, warm and funny. We reflected that if we have even half of Mary's energy and kindness at her age, we would be hugely grateful.
Michele's story. On a beautiful winter morning 27 years ago, Michele gave birth to a bouncing 9-pound 2-ounce baby boy. Full of excitement and love, she named him Declan. What Michele did not know as she looked at her new bundle of joy was that Declan would be diagnosed with autism before the age of 2. This new little human would never learn to verbally communicate, and she would be his full-time carer, always. A job even paid carers will not carry out is cutting nails. To be able to cut Declan's nails, there are many challenges to overcome. The first is to get Declan to sit down and be comfortable for a long enough period. At home, Declan often wears no clothing, just a pad and boxers. If Michele manages to catch him before he takes those off too. The next challenge is to keep him still so as not to cut him. Declan, who has autism and Tourette syndrome, does not fully understand that he needs to stay still while having his nails cut. He is also physically unable to do so due to involuntary movements, often called tics. Cutting nails is a job that could take up to an hour with Declan. Michele says, "I have cut Declan before, despite trying so hard to be careful. The guilt that ran through me after I'd done this was horrendous. Safely completed today, so I can take it off my list until next time." In the library, Declan, curling his 6-foot-tall, 27-year-old body into his mother's lap on the children's corner rug. A moment to treasure. People noticed Michele reading out loud, but after 27 years of stares and comments that this rarely bothers her now. No one really knows that Michele is trying to combat tiredness. Last night was a typical night. Declan pacing the hallway, wetting his bed sheets and making noises into the early hours. This pause is invaluable, although Declan rules Michele's every move. Michele is often unable to meet her own needs. Michele says, "I feel his excitement for the book, aimed at toddlers, that I am about to read him. I hope the people staring can see a calm mother providing her disabled son all the love he needs. All I really want to do is just curl up myself and catch up on some sleep." Luckily, we both love the library. Routine is important to Declan. When things occur that are out of his routine, he can become agitated and distressed. This means that Michele must adhere to Declan's routine as well, ensuring things happen smoothly, which is difficult in today's world. The routine today is to go out at 11 a.m, but as Tina and I visited, very important regime was taken out of sync. A moment in the hallway, clock watching to ensure routine is kept to, but also frozen. Michele holds her sock in one hand, Declan's shoe in the other, needing to make a quick decision. Declan sits on the stairs in front of her, ready for her to put his shoes on, but right now may be the only time she gets to put her own sock on. If she does that first, will he start taking his clothes off in frustration, frozen by the fear of a wrong decision, but still smiling for her guests? Michele says, "How will Declan be with the routine change? How do I avoid chaos?"
Naina's story. Naina is Amber's mother, and their relationship is beautiful to witness. "Amber is my energy, she is my petrol, she is my life," shares Naina. This incredible pair had been through a lot together, yet still stand beside each other closely and smile. Amber, at the age of just 11 years old, began to experience psychosis. At 13, she was at crisis point, believing that her mother was part of a gang who were trying to harm her. This time was extremely terrifying for both Amber and Naina did not know what to do. She didn't understand what had happened to her cheerful, fun-loving little girl. Naina provided constant reassurance and love to Amber, all while in a panicked state herself. Naina is a lone parent whose family live in Pakistan, and her English is limited. Naina was alone and scared. Thankfully, Naina managed to connect with Bristol Pakistani Welfare Organisation, who support Pakistani women's well-being and reduce the risk of loneliness. This is exactly what they did for Naina. They connected her with not only a community that can understand her, but advocate for her and Amber's needs. With their support, Naina enrolled Amber into a school that could support her and found a psychiatrist to ensure Amber's mental health needs were met. Naina is very thankful to Shanaz and her team at the Bristol Pakistani Welfare Organisation. Shanaz also translated for Naina to allow us to communicate. Naina and Shanaz shared with us about their home in Pakistan. When Amber visited Pakistan to visit family, she loved it there and often refuses to come back to England. Naina explained that she needs to be in England, as in Pakistan, although there is practical support regarding food and education, there is limited emotional support systems. They would be unable to gain mental health support, such as access to a psychiatrist. Naina and Shanaz explained that mental health is not as understood or emotionally supported in their hometowns. Naina wants the best for Amber, and Amber's mental health is a priority to her, which is why they stay in England, miles away from family support. I am not worried about me, I am worried about Amber, Naina shares. Naina got quite upset while sharing their story. To protect her daughter, Naina asked Amber to go into another room and listen to her music while she spoke with us. Naina was concerned that reflecting on their difficult past may upset Amber. Naina does, however, explain that she believes Amber has improved quite significantly over the past few years. The support and medication she receives is helping. Though Amber is receiving all she needs and building strength, Naina has her own health issues, which she finds she must sometimes put aside. Naina is also currently having to negotiate a new system, as Amber has now turned 18 years old, and thus transitions over to adult social care. To navigate the social care system in England is challenging for many, but when adding the barrier of English being your second language, it can easily feel overwhelming and very isolating. Amber managed to enrol into a college, but has been provided no transport. Amber and her mum live quite a distance from the college. Amber is unable to take the bus alone, and Naina does not drive. Naina is unable to understand why Amber no longer receives transport to her education provider, and is confused about the next step. Luckily, Shanaz is by her side fighting for Amber and Naina's rights. Naomi's story. We are used to it, Naomi and Steve explain. Caring for their son Ethan has become second nature. Ethan was born in 2010 and immediately needed medical intervention, but it was not until the age of 2 that the family found out why. Ethan was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder termed ARX. Aristoteles-related homebox disorder. Naomi, a first-time mum learning what life is like caring for a young child, is now faced with understanding this rare genetic disorder, which is unbelievably complicated to understand and requires trapezing through lots of medical jargon. She managed to get to the conclusion after many hours of research that the mutation of the ARX gene has been shown to contribute to almost all fundamental processes of brain development. Ethan is now 11, though he is still at the developmental age of a 10-month-old. Ethan's ARX presents with hard-to-control seizures. Naomi and Steve must watch their son experience these seizures throughout the day and night, and the only thing they can do is sit with him, hold his hand, and hope this is not the seizure that will take their little boy from them. Though Naomi and Steve have been caring for Ethan for many years, him needing their full attention all hours of the day, the first thing you notice about them both is their strength and tenacity. They are determined to provide Ethan a happy and full life. Ethan now has a little sister, Florrie. Naomi shares that COVID-19 and the lockdown provided Ethan and Florrie the opportunity to spend time together and learn more about one another. Their relationship has flourished from this time, and Florrie will cuddle, sing and play with Ethan. "Hello, buddy," Florrie says before giving her big brother a cuddle. Though this relationship blossomed during the pandemic, Naomi explained that these years have additionally been incredibly difficult. Being with Ethan 24/7, meeting all of his needs as well as Florrie's, has been overwhelming at times. Naomi has lost friends due to not being able to sustain contact with them. She has not had the time to sit down and find the energy needed to communicate. She has felt completely isolated. During this time, Ethan has been unable to attend school and therefore receive the therapies he needs. Naomi has tried her absolute best to provide Ethan his physio, speech and other therapeutic support, but Ethan's health has been greatly impacted by not receiving the trained interventions and not having access to the equipment needed, including a hydro pool. Ethan's leg muscles are now tight, which can be painful, and this now means that he is unable to stand or walk. Only a few years ago, the family self-funded a walking frame for him. One of the last times Ethan walked was down the aisle at Naomi and Steve's wedding. Naomi loves Ethan and shares his story on Instagram with the title, "Every hero has a story, living with my hero," at Living with My Hero.
Natalie's story. Many carers need to be with the person they care for all day, every day, and this can cause numerous disruptions to the carers' lives. Building and sustaining relationships can be one of these challenges. Natalie has an amazing relationship with her mum, Chris, who she cares for. They spend many hours together and are both very talented creatives. It is wonderful to see them together, sharing endless banter, always making each other smile. Due to Chris's care needs, Natalie is required to almost always be at home or nearby. Though Natalie shows no resentment toward her situation, she does share the impact this has on her friendships and finding a partner. Natalie previously travelled to school on the bus, and during one of these daily journeys, she caught eyes with a boy. Each day following, this brown-eyed boy searched the rows for Natalie, and when he again caught her gaze, they shared a smile. However, this part of the story ends here. Quite a few years later, Natalie found this boy, now a man, via social media. They connected, communicated, and over time found they shared some commonalities, including that they were both carers. Mark and Natalie's relationship blossomed, and their story continues together. Natalie has been a carer for her mum since very young, often feeling unable to leave the house. Natalie also experienced bullying, resulting in her attending just 2 years of secondary education and eventually experiencing depression. Natalie shared that for many years she had no aspirations or goals for herself, only for her mum. Through support from her local Young Carers Service and the Prince's Trust, she has since been able to build her individuality, confidence and own aspirations. Though Chris can still not live without Natalie, Natalie is now part of a drama group, volunteers at a community centre and has a circle of good friends, as well as a strong relationship with her brown-eyed man, Mark.
Nick's story. This year, Nick accepted the challenge to spend 8 days with his joyous daughter Abby, so that the rest of the family could have a break away. Abby is 20 years old. She is fun, loving, and enjoys jumping on the trampoline, swimming in the swimming pool, and listening to ABBA on her iPod. Abby also has Down syndrome, which means that she needs a lot of soft assistance to achieve everyday tasks. When Nick reflects on their time together, he says he enjoyed the opportunity to get to know Abby better, although caring for her is very stressful. He now has even more respect for his wife, who deals with Abby most of the time. For the last 5 months, Abby has been at home from her residential college, which closed due to COVID-19. Nick and his family are very grateful that they have their own swimming pool. Abby needs to constantly be stimulated. Due to her ADHD, she does not stop. This can be exhausting and highly stressful for the family. In consultation with Abby's doctor, they have tried her on a few different medications to try to calm her. It can be frustrating for Abby to feel so restless also. One thing they have found that calms Abby is providing her the opportunities to exercise, whether that is walking or swimming. The extra benefit to swimming, however, is that it gives Nick the chance to assist Abby with her personal hygiene. With the outside shower, I can give Abby the space to be a 20-year-old woman, but I can also encourage her to wash her hair. It's challenging finding the balance between being a father to a grown woman and ensuring her needs are met. Abby and her family have 2 dogs, Bella, a black Labradoodle, and Fizz, a brown Cavapoo, Cavalier Spaniel and Labrador Cross. Abby enjoys walking the dogs, and it is much needed exercise. At home, unstimulated, Abby asks for food constantly, going into the fridge every minute. Trying to explain that she cannot eat constantly has not been easy for Abby's parents. They share, however, that she is a bit better now, as they can reason with her. Another benefit of a walk is it provides a chance for Abby and her father to connect. No distractions, no multitasking, just her dad, and the dog walking through the woods. Nick says, "We have to have a locked box in the fridge with the cheese, mayonnaise and ketchup because she would get up in the middle of the night to help herself to a snack. Her favourite treat currently is a meal deal at McDonald's, so exercise is necessary." A simple task to many, collecting eggs from the chicken coop. For Abby, this is very challenging. Abby is nervous around chickens. Nick tries to teach her to stay calm so that she can collect the eggs. This, however, needs a lot of patience and time. Together, they feed the chickens to help them stay calm, and then with Abby holding tightly to her father, they collect the eggs. A task that might take someone 5 minutes takes Abby and her father at least double that time. Another challenge during daily tasks is that Abby spends a lot of time in an imaginary world where she will have long conversations with several characters. She picks up different scenarios from TV series. She will spend hours talking, laughing, and arguing with these imaginary people. Nick says, "It is a fine balance to let her enjoy these moments and make sure she knows the reality of getting dressed and clearing up after dinner. Sometimes it is difficult to get Abby to be present collecting eggs, rather than discussing which dress to wear for the disco in her imagination."
Patricia's story. Patricia is a carer for her 15-year-old son, Dumasani, due to his complex additional needs. Dumasani needs constant presence of his mum to support him to be safe, happy and healthy. Patricia was told a few years ago after Dumasani had just had major surgery that her son has a short lifespan, and the surgeon shared that during the operation they were almost at a point where it would have been kinder to let him pass away, as they feared Dumasani would have a poor quality of life after the surgery. Patricia was determined to work hard, gain her mental health nursing degree, and work as many hours as she could to save enough money to take her son on many trips and holidays. She did just that. They went swimming with dolphins, kayaking, jet skiing, and so much more, packing in so many memories. Patricia was unsure if she was going to be able to complete her degree, as during her studies, Dumasani became very ill, and other people were scared to look after him and feed him through his feeding tube. Patricia, however, was determined. "I am going to do this, yes." One night, while Patricia was working a night shift as a nurse on a psychiatric ward, earning money to pay for her and her son's next trip away, it suddenly felt to her that the lights went out. She tried the light switch, but the lights didn't seem to turn back on. She went into the corridor, and to her it seemed the other staff have turned all the lights off. Patricia thought that this may have been for the patients to sleep. She was, however, slightly worried as the ward seemed darker than usual. She thought she would head to the office as the lights remained on in there 24/7, but on her arrival the room was pitch dark. Trying to remain calm to not alarm the other staff and patients, she sat at her computer and closed her eyes, hoping that in a few minutes her sight would return. It didn't. Patricia's world was now dark. She could see nothing at all. She began to cry. Something has gone wrong. One of her first thoughts was, "My son. How am I going to care for my son?" After a taxi home, a next-day appointment at the eye hospital, a 6-hour operation on her left eye, then the following day another operation on her right eye, some of Patricia's sight was returned. She is still unable to see more than a metre in front of her. Everything is grey and blurry, and to see anything clearly it needs to be magnified and held close to her eyes. This sudden and traumatic change to her sight led Patricia into a depression. Many tears were shed. For numerous months, Patricia and her son spent many hours on the sofa together. Patricia holding her son's leg or lying with their legs linked to know that he is nearby and safe. Travelling together stopped as Patricia felt too scared to leave her front door alone. She had lost all her confidence. Patricia explained after being asked, "How are you now so positive?" that Dumasani had only cried a handful of times since birth. However, when she struggled, she cried a lot. And when she cried, Dumasani cried. She shared, "I have to pull myself together for him. Who is going to be there for him otherwise? No one." Patricia conveys that she is getting used to it now and that she has developed little tricks to help her continue to care for Dumasani. These tricks include cooking with the nose, taking a photo of a plate of food on her phone and zooming in to see it, and running her fingers along the walls to know her path. Patricia believes that Dumasani understands that his mum's eyes no longer work like they used to. If Patricia spends too long in the kitchen, Dumasani will come to her and put his hand on her as if to say, "Do you need any help?" To get Dumasani dressed, Patricia explains that this is a time when his autistic traits are helpful. He would take off anything that was not right. Therefore, if Patricia puts his shoes on the wrong way, he would take them off, and they would keep doing this until he is dressed correctly. Patricia is confident within her home now, but is trying to transfer that confidence to when she is outside her home. She is nonetheless happy that Dumasani is happy, safe, and getting stronger.
Pearl's story. Pearl is a beautiful and talented woman who loves to write poetry. She is the mother of 3 young women, one of whom is called Kameta. When Kameta was very young, a health visitor recommended she be taken to a paediatrician. Pearl admits she didn't notice that Kameta had special needs. She just thought she had a different character from her sister. Kameta was later diagnosed with autism. She needs full-time care, which Pearl provides her out of a strong sense of love and duty. Kameta is filled with energy. She is fast and needs constant stimulation. Pearl has carefully created a very structured and safe routine for Kameta, as this helps her feel less distressed. This routine meets each of Kameta's needs, but can lead to Pearl having little time or energy to meet her own. Often, Pearl doesn't have time to eat until late morning, once Kameta has left the house with her one-to-one support for the day. Kameta needs constant care, and Pearl is very grateful to have her daughter Amena there to help when she needs her. Amena is very busy herself, studying full-time at university. However, she is still happy to take part in caring for Kameta. She feels that it is unreasonable to expect one person to provide all the care Kameta needs alone. Pearl says, "Amena has been a young carer since around the age of 8. This means she has taken on certain responsibilities at a very young age that her peers without a sibling with special needs would not ordinarily have to do." Amena says, "Mum always asks if it was okay, me helping. I always insisted that it was." Pearl walks with Kameta on a carefully chosen route where the pavements are wide enough for Pearl to walk by her daughter's side to shield her from the road, due to her lack of understanding of danger and impulses like spinning on the spot mid-walk. Pearl needs to be hyper-vigilant, not only because of Kameta's extra needs due to her autism, but also because of her fear of heights. She is unable to cross bridges safely or to be near any drops that she is unfamiliar with. If Kameta's fear response is activated, she runs and may not stop until caught, which means Pearl is always thinking one step ahead while keeping right by her side. Pearl says, "When I'm out walking with Kameta, I always make sure that I wear flat shoes as opposed to heels. This is so that should she decide to bolt at any time, I'm already in the correct footwear to be able to run after her and grab hold of her." Kameta can feed herself, but Pearl needs to be on guard to supervise, as Kameta is prone to throwing food on the floor. Kameta is non-verbal, but is good at using the Makaton sign for food when she wants something to eat. Pearl prepares all Kameta's food for her, as she is unable to do this for herself. But Pearl does encourage her to contribute to the task, such as pouring milk into a pan and stirring or putting bread in the toaster. Pearl's patience and encouragement have led to a clear food routine for Cometa. Cometa will go into the kitchen to get her food tray, then take the tray into the dining room and sit at the table. Once she has finished eating, Cometa will take her tray and plate out into the kitchen and wash her hands. This gives some order to what could be a stressful time of the day. Pearl says, I see caring as a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it challenges you every day to keep focused and upbeat for the sake of your loved one, whilst on the other, it snatches away from you any sense of independence and ties you to a life where you are always having to put yourself second. Cometa is very sensory. You will always find her with things she can fiddle with. These can be balloons, rubber bands, squidgy balls, pillows, or soft toys. These all help to keep her stimulated when she is sitting and relaxing. Cometa often sits calmly in her chair, looking out of the window at the view outside, with her radio on. Her family believes this lets her know there is a whole world just outside, opening up her own world a little more. Pearl and her family feel grateful that they live in a community-focused area. When Cometa was younger, she spent many happy hours after school and during the holidays at their local adventure playground, a stone's throw from where they live. Pearl says, I can only assume that caring is caring, whatever culture one may be from. The role is the same, and the needs of the cared-for person must still be met. For me, it's about doing the best that you can do for your loved one, whilst trying to maintain some sort of balance for yourself without reaching breaking point or burnout. Caring includes caring for oneself. That way, a person will be in a better position to care for their loved one more effectively.
Sarah's story. Behind the front door of a townhouse lived a family of 5. To their community, this house consists of a strong, hard-working and loving mother of 4 bright, creative and talented children. Though this is completely accurate, what goes unseen is a fixed routine created to meet just one person's needs, and if ever strayed from, the violence each member had to endure. Annabella was born with Prader-Willi syndrome, PWS, which is caused by missing genetic material that leads to several challenges, including delayed growth, persistent hunger, and behavioural problems. Sarah, Annabella's mum, explained that her beautiful, caring, fun little girl would display challenging behaviours in what felt like slow motion, but at the same time happened so fast. Many objects would get broken and skin cut and bruised. Annabella's actions were never malicious, but came from overwhelm and was a form of communication, and Sarah knew this. However, she was finding it increasingly hard to keep Annabella, her other children and herself safe. Sarah had to determine how to ensure everyone's welfare. Sarah felt that her local authority did not have enough support available for Annabella. Support workers would leave as they struggled with Annabella's rages. Social workers came and went. Services stopped once she left primary school. What Sarah did manage to find was a residential school that looked fantastic for Annabella, with specialists of her condition, therapy she could access, and a community who could understand her and her complex needs. This school, the only one of its kind, had a space available, however, is 3 hours away from the family's home. Sarah reflects that this decision was very difficult. She not only had to trust others to care for her daughter, leave her somewhere and wave goodbye knowing she couldn't just pop back over due to the distance, but she also had to admit that she could not provide the safety and care Annabella needs to be healthy, happy and thrive. Sarah was not giving up, but being honest about where she was at and wished to ensure Annabella received all she needed to grow into a strong, healthy, independent woman. After discussion with Annabella, they agreed together for her to start this new residential school. At first, Sarah reflects that it felt awful without Annabella at home. The family were at a loss as to what to do. admitting that even now it is still very strange, and they feel there is and always will be something missing. However, Annabella settled in well to her new school and is thriving. She loves her school. Sarah feels much more relaxed knowing Annabella is somewhere safe, and she can now provide this safety to her 3 other children, Jamie, Oscar and Francesca. The family now no longer follow a constant structured routine or worrying about how to keep each family member safe. Jamie is working full-time in a role he enjoys and spends his free time drawing. Oscar attends trampolining and taekwondo. Francesca is musically talented and is part of a performing arts and dance group. Sarah works full-time in her children's school as learning support, taking trips to work on a farm in Wales, attending yoga sessions, reigniting her old hobbies including photography and horse riding, teaching swimming lessons and going on regular long walks and cycles. Though Sarah is very grateful for the opportunity to be able to provide each of her family members the safety, love and care they deserve, she shares that she will never lose the memory and feelings from the moment when she first dropped Annabella at her new school. When completing admission paperwork, she suddenly couldn't breathe. Sarah says, "My heart had broken beyond repair. I couldn't drive home because of the tears. This was like my soul was wrenched from me." Annabella is now, however, thriving, and Jamie, Oscar and Francesca get a chance to thrive too. Sarah says, "To be able to live with my decisions over this, I must focus on what is going well, not the fact that it makes me feel like I couldn't cope. I'm a crap mother to a disabled child. It's a choice that I wish I never had to make. I hate PWS and the catastrophic impact it has on our family. No one ever wants to choose boarding school for their child, but I don't see that I had a choice really."
Susie's story. This piece was predominantly written by Susie and her mother Vanessa. What happens when a family member has more care needs than you can meet? As the hours of care needed by a loved one increase, trying to juggle care, family, work and everything else can sometimes become too much. Susie was finding it difficult to balance everything, and although she felt guilty for thinking it, she often wished things could go back to how they were, when she was just a daughter to Vanessa, not a carer. Vanessa was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 12 years ago and moved into a house a 5-minute walk away from Susie to be near her daughter, enabling Susie to help her mum as the condition progressed. Over time, Vanessa relied increasingly on Susie for support as she began to lose more independence. Vanessa had to give up driving, and difficulties with her mobility led to requiring the use of a walking frame and eventually to have a wheelchair at home. She needed help washing, dressing, cooking and cleaning. As Susie was working part-time and bringing up her 2 sons, one of whom had additional needs, the family decided to hire carers to come and work for Vanessa. One of the most difficult symptoms of Parkinson's disease is impulsivity, and this, combined with Vanessa's fierce sense of independence, repeatedly led Vanessa to injure herself. She would, for example, get up to open a window, then lose her balance and fall. However, if she had waited a few more minutes for her carer to come, they could have opened it for her. Over the course of 15 months, Vanessa dislocated her shoulder 9 times, resulting in Susie taking her for multiple hospital trips, each causing trauma for Vanessa and a great deal of anxiety for Susie, which impacted on the rest of her family. During the first lockdown of spring 2020, Susie was forced to give up some of her work and was worried about money, but this did allow her to spend more time with Vanessa and be able to support her when she was experiencing hallucinations and delirium brought on by an acute infection. This was a scary time for Susie, as she felt a huge responsibility for her mum's well-being, trying to understand her complicated medical needs and become an expert on the condition without any medical background or training. In September 2020, Susie started a new job in a school working Monday to Friday, meaning Vanessa now needed her care provided by someone other than Susie in the daytime. At this time, Vanessa had external carers in her home for 5 hours a day, with Susie still visiting after school and cooking for her at the weekends. However, another medical crisis occurred in May 2021, when Vanessa was hospitalised for 4 weeks and they finally had to concede that it wasn't safe for Vanessa to live on her own anymore. Susie took some unpaid leave and managed to find a family-run agency of live-in care staff. 6 months later, Vanessa now feels supported in her own home and community, with help from a team of carers who know her and can meet her needs. Meanwhile, Susie can work full-time and spend more time with her partner and boys, knowing her mum is safe and happy. Susie still takes Vanessa to all her medical appointments, fitting them around her job, and she continues to step in and care for her mum sometimes during the school holidays, but generally feels happy transitioning from being her mum's carer back to being her daughter. Susie and Vanessa are very lucky and grateful that paid living care has been an available solution for them, but this isn't always the case. Do adult children have a duty to provide care for a disabled parent? To what extent should they compromise their own finances, career, family, and life for their loved ones? Or can a balance be reached without either party experiencing guilt or resentment?
Tony and Amy's story. In a beautiful cosy home with miles of fields behind live a family of 3, Tony, Amy and Aston. 10 years ago, Tony proposed to Amy at Glastonbury Festival, both young and full of energy. Tony, a mechanic who loved to ride his motorbike, and Amy, a confident singer, both very active and enjoyed doing circuit training together. After their wedding, Amy fell pregnant. Aston's birth was sadly traumatic for Amy's body. Her hips were badly damaged, and it has now left her with constant pain and a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, along with her hypermobility. This, however, was just the first of the challenges the family were to face. Due to Amy's physical health, Tony was needed more than ever. He now is needed to support Amy to get dressed, put on her shoes, organise her medication and do most of the housework, all whilst working full-time to sustain the income needed to take care of his family. As Aston grew older, Amy and Tony noticed he was not meeting a child's typical milestones. Their gorgeous, happy little boy was diagnosed with global learning delay and hypermobility very early on. Then came a diagnosis of both autism just before his 4th birthday and of ADHD at the age of 7. Though for many parents this would be a challenging time, fearing that their child's future is likely to be greatly impacted by the diagnoses, Amy felt more connected to Aston than ever before. She noticed things Aston would do that made great sense to her, but not to the outside world. During the assessment process for Aston, Amy decided also to be assessed and was diagnosed with ADHD and autism at the age of 33. Diagnoses she shared with her son. These diagnoses led Amy to not look back and dwell on what could have been if she'd been diagnosed as a child, but instead look forward for her and Aston's future, diving into research for potential support while ensuring Aston has all he needs to thrive. Aston is extremely bright and confident. He loves science, especially regarding space, playing games, building Lego with his dad. While opening a new Lego set in the room Aston calls his den, he told us all, "Watch us work," creating the complicated piece in under 10 minutes. Aston loves to learn, and Tony loves to teach him. Whilst on a walk together, Tony points out different landmarks and some of nature's gifts. Aston by his side, listening and soaking in his father's wisdom. Tony is needed by both his son and his wife, and is often found rushing between Aston's den and the front room where Amy is often sat, her pain-filled body propped up by pillows on her very comfortable sofa. He works just a 7-minute walk away from home to keep close to his family. Tony has hung up his motorbike gear, explaining that it's too risky now with the responsibilities he has, although he still loves his job and enjoys going shooting with friends to let off steam. Though Amy no longer regularly sings due to her confidence being knocked, she's so grateful for Tony's continued support. The couple have decided to renew their vows, with their courageous little boy Aston beside them as they do so. "We know we'll be together forever after the 10 years we have had," Amy states, as Tony wraps his arms around her and smiles.
Our exhibition summary. We are incredibly grateful to all the carers who took part in the project. Though we are aware this group amounts to a very small fraction of the carers who are out there, working throughout the day and night to keep someone alive. We have been using the following definition of a carer unpaid. A carer is someone who provides support to a family or friend who cannot manage without this help. This can mean caring for a relative, partner, or friend who is ill, frail, disabled, or has a mental health or substance misuse problem, all while not receiving a living wage for this work. Carer's allowance is currently £269 per month for 35 hours a week, which works out roughly £1.92 per hour. National living wage for an 18-year-old is currently £6.56 per hour. Young carers receive no allowance. We have been kindly welcomed into the homes of carers, gaining a glimpse into their everyday lives, which is often invisible. We have listened while carers laughed, cried, shouted and whispered their stories, all completely unique, yet rather similar. They all love the person they care for deeply and unconditionally, however, have times where they want to scream and give up. We believe that all these feelings are completely valid and normal. Carers are incredible. They take on a role which they did not apply for, receive no training for, have no regular supervision, with no opportunities for professional progression, and receive very little income for. They also must tread through many failing and challenging systems. Because of this, they will undoubtedly have days, weeks, months, or years when they feel undervalued, lost, frustrated, or exhausted. We believe carers need to know that they are incredible. Each person we have met have been loving, beautiful, and inspiring. So please, if you take away anything from this exhibition, take away this. You are, will know, or will be a carer at some point in your life, and carers need understanding and to know that they are loved. To achieve this, we need to keep asking our friends, family, neighbours, and even strangers, how are you? Not others in your life, but how are you? And then stay and listen with no other agenda, no quick passing on the street, but simply be present to really hear their voices. Carers have the right to be heard. Let carers know that although they are often an invisible army, they are not alone.